Lisa from Mobile Tech Review, and today we're going to look at the Sony Xperia Tablet S. This is Sony's second generation Android tablet, and it packs a lot of improvement. Most notably, it keeps that kind of wedge shape that made the original Sony Tablet S cool, but it gets a lot thinner, so it doesn't have that kind of really seriously chunky thing at the end going on, but still nice to hold. And if you take a look at the back here, you can see there's a whole lot more metal, so just like you expect from a Sony product, higher class feel to it. We're going to look at it now. So the Sony Xperia Tablet S is available just now. It starts at $399 for the 16 gig model. There's a $499 32 gig model and a $599 64 gig model. Like the first Tablet S, it's a 9.4-inch true black display running at 1280 by 800 pixels. Really nice display. So is the first one. Nice, rich, deep blacks, great colors. It is of course glossy, all these tablets are, so there is glare. Sony makes a matte screen protector if you want to cut back on that, and it actually does a nice job of doing so without creating too much grain. And as we mentioned, the styling is definitely improved. The first Tablet S had a wedge shape, and we liked the wedge shape. It was very comfortable to hold, but it was kind of thick at the top, so this one thins down, and in part that's the progress of technology. Components get smaller and smaller, and in a year's time, which is how long has passed since the first tablet came out, well, there's more miniaturization. We still have that rollover thing on the back going on here, so it's sort of like a folded over magazine. It does make it easy to hold. You can see it's quite glossy plastic, just like the original one. It does show fingerprints. You can use it to, do Morse code there in the sky. It reflects, but it has a stippled finish, so it's not as slippery as you might think, despite the fact that it's glossy. And all the stuff here is aluminum. Very similar to the iPad finish, in fact, including the curves that we see on the side. The speakers have been moved down to the bottom, so your hands are not going to cover them if you're holding it one hand on each side, say in landscape mode, watching a movie. Really good sound, pretty loud, fairly full. And here's the multi-purpose connectors under this little rubber plug, because Sony builds this as being splash-proof. They'd love to see you use this when you're cooking in the kitchen is the idea. That's why it's splash-proof. Doesn't mean you can take it in the bathtub with you or go swimming with it, but it's okay if you have wet hands and you touch the screen and if it's in the kitchen. So this little piece of plastic just pulls right out. Probably easy to lose. And there's your multifunction connector. This is where you plug in the charger. The kind of pain-in-the-neck charger that we saw on the first Tablet S, gone. This one's a lot easier to plug and use. And you can also get optional accessories. There's a $20 USB host cable adapter, so you can use USB peripherals like flash drives, hard drives, mice, and keyboards. I know since it's a different connector, it's not the standard micro USB that was on the last Sony tablet. You can't use your original Sony tablet USB host adapter if you have one. For $40, they sell an HDMI adapter. Again, that's an improvement over the first Tablet S because there was no HDMI out at all. But they are moving obviously in the direction of companies like Samsung, where you've got to get all sorts of little dongles and adapters. They make a little more money off you, but it does also allow them to miniaturize the motherboard and the components a bit more so that they don't have to make discrete connectors and traces on the motherboard to all these different things. And while we're talking about accessories, Sony has really gone to town with some beautiful accessories for this. This is a stand that looks like something out of Scandinavian modern home design. It's kind of expensive at $99, but go take a look at their website and check it out. Really nice looking, and it holds it up off the ground. Probably really good, again, in the kitchen if you want to have it suspended while you're reading recipes or watching a cooking show. And they have a keyboard cover that folds around, sort of like the Apple-style origami case, but it has a Microsoft Surface-like keyboard built into it, very thin, not super duper tactile, but very portable, functions as a case also. That's $99. When we take a look at the sides here, you can see Sony still likes their little flaps. The headphone jack is exposed, so you don't need to open up anything to get to that. But there's your SD card slot in there. Full-size SD card slot. Now if you have micro SD cards, just use the micro SD to SD card adapter that probably came with it, so you can stick it in here and still use your micro SD card. And on this side we have the power controls. And you can see they're labeled here. We're holding it upside down so you get a better view. Your volume control and your power. These are a little easier to get to compared to the last generation where they're really tucked far inside the flap. You do have to fold your finger around the edge to find them. It's fairly comfortable as you're holding it like this to actually use those controls. But it is a little annoying that you can't see them when you're looking at them from the front, as we'll show you here. Cannot see them anymore. Nope. The tablet weighs 1¼ pounds, making it one of the lighter tablets on the market. And since it's 9.4 inches instead of the usual Android 10.1, it's a little bit more compact in its dimensions. In fact, it's here it is compared to the iPad 3. size-wise, they're almost identical in their footprints. The iPad 3, our new iPad, is actually a little bit bigger. I'll swap who's in front so you can see that. You know, the iPad is a 9.7-inch tablet. There's a difference in the footprint right there, just this little edge over here, basically. Now we have the Samsung Galaxy Note 10.1 here in the front, 10.1-inch Android, pretty much the same size as most other 10.1-inch Androids. And it's going to be bigger as well. If we get them lined up, you can see the difference in the footprint. So a little bit more portability with the Sony. A little bit easier to handle and hold, maybe a little bit more comfortable when you're reading magazines or books. How about what's inside? Definitely updated internals here. Competitive, we have the quad-core Tegra 3 with GeForce 12-core GPU inside. And it's 1.4 gigahertz CPU, but only one core is running, 1.3 gigahertz if you have multiple cores running. It has a gig of RAM, and again, it's available at 16, 32, or 64 gigs of storage. The storage seems to behave well. None of those ASUS please wait problems that we see in some of the transformers. It has GPS, Bluetooth, and dual-band Wi-Fi 802.11 BGN. It's got a front 1 megapixel video chat camera and a rear 8 megapixel camera. That's pretty good specs there for the camera. And the camera actually takes reasonably good shots and can shoot 1080p video. So as tablet cameras go better than average, which is something we would expect from Sony because they make some darn good cameras. In terms of benchmarks, the tablet does about what you would expect for those specs inside. For Quadro, we scored almost 4,600, which is pretty good for a Tegra 3, not the very top of the line. Samsung Galaxy Note with the Exynos CPU manages a 5349 in comparison, so looking a little bit better there. SunSpider was 1838, again fairly average for a higher-end Android tablet, and OpenGL Benchmark's Egypt off-screen test was a very good 67 FIPS. You know, Sony's interested in gaming, and there are Xperia games for this, so of course we expect them to tune it well for that. Like the Tablet S, we have UI customization here, maybe a little less noticeable at first. They haven't messed with the application drawer here as much. Before it was skinned over in white, not that I actually minded that, and you could set up dividers for different kinds of application groups and customize and all that kind of thing. Now you're looking at something that's more standard Android in the UI. And you can tap over to see widgets here. And you can swipe right back to your applications again. And we've got the standard Android apps here, plus some stuff that they've loaded, some of their own things like their album widget. We've got AccuWeather that's preloaded on here. Evernote is also preloaded on the tablet. We've got Sony's Photo Gallery widget over here. We've got a widget for the Sony Reader for ebooks application, and their Social Life social networking widget on here too. So this is running Android OS 4.0 Ice Cream Sandwich. Sony said it will get the upgrade to Jelly Bean. Sony has not said when it will get the upgrade to Jelly Bean, but it will get it. If you notice up here, we have a couple of shortcuts. Again, Sony did something fairly similar on the last tablet too, and we like those a lot. So you've got this cute little thing you can tap on right here, the globe. That'll take you right to the web browser. You've got your email shortcut, your camera, and this will take you to settings, so you don't have to go mucking through your icons or add even more shortcuts on your desktop to get to those things. And down here you'll see the little remote symbol. And that brings up the little IR remote widget, because this has consumer IR, control your AV gear, your home theater gear. That can do, it's Sony. They did a great job at this. You can control pretty much anything out there. Receivers, TVs, cable boxes, all sorts of audio components. And so here in the widget you can swipe through and get to the basics, and if you need the full thing you just tap the arrow and it takes you to the full experience. And if we go here, you can see here's the components that we've set up, and we can just control on and off right here without actually going into the device we need to charge. But say we want to control our cable box, we just tap on that, and there's our remote. Wait, there's more. You can see we can control our cable box here. It's multi-screen. The dots here indicate that, so you've got quite a bit of control here. Much more sophisticated AV remote than we've seen with any other product. Now, interestingly, TV watching software is not preloaded, but Sony tells you to go ahead and download it yourself, and we've got Watch Now, which is an awful lot like Peel. It's kind of a discovery program. First it asks you what your zip code is, who your cable provider is, and then it starts loading up a highly graphical grid that kind of marches along, and you can hit the pause button to stop it. So you can see here it is just going on its own. Or if you touch something, it's going to stop for a moment so you can look at it. So we're interested in what that is. So we just tap again, and there it is. And if we hit Watch Now, it's going to control all of our AV gear and get us watching the show. And you can add things to favorites and it remembers what you like. So top notch, really one of my favorites. I like the fact that you've got this content system here. You can also just download TV Guide if you prefer that style of grid. But really sophisticated controlling of your AV gear. A little bit like Samsung, only this isn't tailored to pen at all because this does not have an active digitizer and a digital pen. But we've got a little shortcut down here. This what this one does. It brings up handy dandy little things that you might use all the time, like the calculator, the web browser, memo application, a voice recorder, timer. Again, we're being kitchen focused here, and your remote control. And you can add stuff to it, as you can see here. Now, a little bit like Samsung, again, these will pop up in little mini windows, you can see, but you can't run multiple ones at a time. If we switch to a different thing, it's going to appear over here in the same place. So we switch over to our voice recorder. It's closed the previous one, and now we have this over here. But still, it makes life a little bit easier for these handy things that you actually want to do frequently. And lastly, you can see we have guest mode here. If you want to enable guest mode, this is really, well, it's obviously for your guests if you don't want them to see your collection of dubious ebooks or whatever it is you've got, or say more usefully for your kids, you just want to give them a sandboxed experience. You can tap there and you can start setting up guest mode. You can even have custom wallpaper so it's easy visually to see and make sure that it is running in guest mode and set up what things are going to run on there. See, first you give it a name. Say we call it kids. And we have limited application versus unlimited, and that's going to take us through picking which applications they're allowed to access. So you get the idea there. So good stuff. So Sony's a big-time multimedia company, and they did a lot more, actually, for this. So let's see, we've got a lot of stuff for consumption here. Again, we have that social life, that's just for social networking. We have the Walkman application, that's their custom audio application. Banking on the Walkman name. It's nice-looking stuff. We've got a photo album, that's their own photo album, kind of graphically rich and pleasing, and you can sort it between being online, pictures, and so on. And they also have their cloud service, which we have here, is Playmemories. If you bought a Sony computer, you've already seen Playmemories in action, so you can share stuff cloud-wise between your computers and your tablet pretty easily. We've also got Hulu Plus on board, Netflix is pre-installed, and Sony's Crackle. Now, Sony's Crackle is a pretty pleasant thing on this. If you tried the Flash version on Android tablets, it can be pretty bulky, especially when it gets those advertisements. And even if you're using the tablet-optimized one, often the advertisements do cause problems. This one, so far, I actually have not even received any advertisements. The image quality, or video quality, is very clear, plays smoothly, no problems with excessive buffering. It's good stuff. And that's what Crackle looks like, and you can switch between these different categories over here, and anything you want to watch is good to go. We would show you, but copyright restrictions mean that we really can't. Sony usually gets pretty upset if you're playing any kind of Sony content on YouTube. And we also have Sony's Video Unlimited and Music Unlimited services here. I believe you get a short trial with both of those so you can test them out and see how you like them for streaming services. We've also got Xperia link here, and that's if you happen to own a Sony Xperia or Sony Ericsson Xperia phone and you want to use it as a wireless modem for your tablet. It's supposed to make it easier to do. Zinio is preloaded here. We've got Wi-Fi checker. Sony Select is kind of like a pretty online magazine of applications and things you can do with your tablet. It can be helpful, especially for newbies. Skype is also preloaded, as you can see here. We've got a scrapbook application. And we've got a widget that takes you to exploring some Sony Xperia games, but unfortunately that's not up and running yet, so we can't see that, but this should be compatible with Xperia games, which is a big plus for those who like to game, and because it's a Tegra 3, it's also compatible with the Tegra Zone games, including the Tegra 3 enhanced games. In fact, we're going to take a look at one now. We're going to test out our favorite gruesome Dark Meadow, because it's a pretty demanding game with some nice high quality audio. You hear the sound is really good on this. Very nice and loud and clear.
Of course not. Your mother raised you better than that. I'll bet you're the head of a major charity. Well, no, wait, you probably invented the internet. On behalf of humanity,
Funny game.
thanks for the internet.
There we go, and look for some monsters. Panning around, very smooth. And nobody wants to beat us up. Ah, there we go. Plays just fine, looks great. Good for gaming. And finally we have the Sony Reader application. Those of you who have owned Sony e-readers, dedicated e-ink readers, are familiar with this application and platform. Sony has their own store. It uses the EPUB standard, very standard Adobe Adept DRM EPUBs. And you can sideload your own books as well if you want on here. You can see it looks great. And if you want to use it in a more traditional book position, no problem. Text is nice and sharp and clear. Page turn speeds are fine, and you can set things like your page animation preferences here. You can see all your options are down here for changing your text size, which direction you want to swipe in, what page effect you want, brightness, justification, but no switching the font, which is interesting. When you first launch the application, this is what you see. You can create an account if you don't have one. You can shop for books. You can just try the app now. So that's nice. A lot of ebook reading applications, they make you register before you even get to look at the thing. So you can just hit try the app now. And you can see this is what they start you off with for books here. So you get that free experience like the book that we just showed you. And if you want to visit the store, you can do so even without having an account. So you can check out selection and prices. And there it is, looking pretty much like their website. And not all that different from the desktop application for those of you who've used it. And of course this does streaming video, as we mentioned. You got Hulu Plus on board, Netflix, Sony's own Crackle, Sony's video services. You can play locally stored video. You can play 1080p video just fine on this, more than powerful enough. Lovely screen for watching video, by the way, and obviously those speakers are good. And here we've got the YouTube player up. And we'll play one of our own videos. So here it is, looking good, streaming just fine.
Galaxy Note 10.1. It's finally here, announced first in February, and Samsung went back to the drawing board and improved it a lot.
Like most tablets, this is a lithium-ion battery that is sealed inside the casing. Sony claims 10 hours of browsing with Wi-Fi and 12 hours of video playback with Wi-Fi turned off. Clearly they're not quoting that as setting at max brightness, but this is a pretty bright display. You most likely wouldn't want to run it at max brightness. So far in our test, it's looking like we're getting about 8 to 9 hours, but read our full review when we've had more time to run this through the battery test to get the final analysis on battery life. So that's a Sony Xperia Tablet S, available now starting at $399, which is pretty much your standard price for a 1280 by 800 tablet these days. I would call that a fairly competitive price, and you get a lot for your money. We like the original Sony Tablet S a lot, and we like this one. It's an elegant design, it's a quality package, it's easy to hold, it's comfortable to hold. It has the cutting-edge standard Tegra 3 CPU inside, and a whole lot of nice Sony services. They do a good job, just like Samsung does, of customizing the tablet a little bit to make it more turnkey. So you've got lots of things at your fingertips when you first turn it on, making it very friendly for newbies, not those of you who are out there looking for your computer replacement, your ultra techie already, that kind of thing. But lots of stuff to do just when you boot it up. You've got e-reading on here, you've got many video streaming possibilities, you've got a couple of music players, lots of easy things to use. Shortcuts up here to make it easy to get to commonly used things. This little quickie application bar. All in all, good job from Sony. I'm Lisa from Mobile Tech Review. Visit our website for the full review of the Sony Xperia Tablet S, and don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel.